Okay. All right.
At what point in the script did you know you were going to be sleeping with Debs?
Answer the question.
Mr. Corleone.
I got a question for you guys. Have you guys all read the comic, I assume? Just based on, in what ways is it different? Unlike the comic books.
Have you read it?
I have, yeah.
Okay. I was going to say you know the answer.
I sort of meant like, I don't know, like the way the characters interact with each other, you know, the writing, anything like that. Sort of different when you're actually dealing with actors instead of just characters.
Yeah, well, the natural progression is that it sort of takes on a life of its own, but it's inspired by the characters that Greg laid out, and there's a reason for that. It's because, you know, when I read it, I fell in love with those people. So I thought, oh, let's make this a show.
The extrapolation has been, I mean, it's glorious. Because, you know, when the way I read a comic, writing a comic is a very different thing than writing any performance media, right? When you're engaging in a performance media, be it, you know, television, a play, a screenplay, every part has to be fully accounted for. All right? In a comic, I have the luxury of saying this is Dex's story. So by definition, almost every character is a secondary character. Now they may get more or less screen time, right? And I want to give them their due. But they are, because of the nature of the medium, the nature of that storytelling, the focus stays mostly on Dex. When you watch the pilot, yeah, you're following Dex's journey, but, you know, Gray comes into a scene, Ansel comes into a scene, Hollis, Sue Lynn, Cosmo, all of these characters come in. They are coming in from their own, they have to carry their own story all the way through, all right? And that means that has to be accounted for, not just in the performance. You know, it doesn't. It is unfair to say to, you know, Cole or to Adrian or anybody, here's all the heavy lifting, do it yourself, right? Jason and Matt have to account for that as well, and that's radically. I mean, that's a different demand. So for me, right, the guy who is responsible for, quote unquote, the source material, and who has not written an episode, right, is sitting here and sort of watching their journey of discovery and watching the actors inflate these roles, fill them out. They are extrapolating in a way that I think is, and I am aware that hyperbole gets used a lot when talking about media and TV, and people go like, it's the greatest thing ever.
It's literally used all the time.
Yes. but this has been flawless. I mean, it has been flawless. You know, I have, the changes that have been made are all logical, good, additive changes. And what the performance is across the board that I'm saying, it's just like, that's, to put it another way, Jason hasn't done anything that I've seen as yet where I've been like, that doesn't fit, that's not Stumptown. It's all flawlessly Stumptown. So, I couldn't, you know, that's a bad answer in a way, but
No, it's a great answer.
yeah, it makes you look good. So.
When you were working on the books, it was basically all of the decisions were being made with you and Justin or you and Matthew, but now you've had to kind of pass the reins on a little bit more to some other people to make this happen. Has that been hard for you?
There are things that have cropped up that I've looked at and I've been like, why? And then I'm told why, and I'm like, oh, well, yeah. But the flip side is, or not the flip side, I mean the extension of that is one of the first conversations that Jason and I had was, and this is before he sat down to write the pilot, I said, you've got to get rid of the Marenko backstory. Like if you know the Stumptown series, the bad guy sort of crime boss is a guy named Hector Rucka. I wrote this in 2009. He was an MS-13 guy. In 2009, nobody knew what that was. If you say now you're a big criminal guy in Portland, it's MS-13, it doesn't matter how you feel about the current administration or not, you are literally dog whistling. You can't do it, you know? So it's a logical change, it's a necessary change, and if I was writing it today, it wouldn't be MS-13. My biggest dispute right now is about the nature of Dex's military service. I think they've got to nail that down, so.
We'll wrestle for it.
Yeah.
And I would just say one of the other changes, what interested me when I read the graphic novel is I was interested in the origin story. You know, that was something that piqued my interest. I wanted to know how she became a PI. I wanted to tell an emotional story about this very emotional character and, you know, her journey to becoming a PI. And that's the story that we tracked in the first, 4 episodes of the show. So it's a change. Sure.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview with Drake a little while back where he was saying that TV detectives sort of represent the time and place that they exist in, whether it be Jim Rockford or Thomas Magnum. Why do you think now is the time and place for things?
Well, I have a 15-year-old daughter here somewhere. She's ducking in the audience. And after I read these books, I hadn't worked on anything that I thought could sort of inspire her. There was a character that was out there, and when I was looking to adapt this, I'm not talking about fiction, and I'm not talking about graphic novels. When you're looking at television, which is my trade, visual mean, there's just no character like this in the pantheon. They're always coupled with some guy, and the female character is always kind of doing all the work, and he's kind of infantile and getting all the credit, and there's a million ways in which they're coupled together. And just the idea that there was this independent, flawed woman out there trying to make it work and being very honorable and never giving up was just a good role model that I hadn't seen, and it was a character that didn't exist, and it's very simple. It just wasn't out there. And she's not a superhero. Those are out there, but it's just a regular person. Yes.
So I was wondering if one of the changes, Swell's character, and is the partnering with indigenous tribes. Like, have you made a conscious effort to partner with indigenous tribes to tell that part of the story?
Yeah, we have consultants that we talk to and deal with, so that when we tell the stories involving Sue Lane and Tom too is a big part of this, that we're reflecting in a way that we understand. It's a world that we don't see much on television at all, but especially network television. And the ways in which she's interesting to me are the ways in which she reminds me of people that I know and my family and interesting characters. It's just to make somebody very dimensional and completely and utterly relatable. And that's where I find her to be most interesting.
Tonto, you said upstairs that you asked Greg, how did he nail, your character so well as a white guy from Portland? What was his answer?
Do you remember?
Well, the way I recall it is that he knows these women. He knows women with that power, and he should answer it.
Yes, he should answer it, but you perfectly play it. I don't know how you come out of that pilot not loving Sue Lane. She is so ferocious, and I love there are so many things I love about the portrayal. I love the wit. I love the strength. I also love the silent knife cuts deepest, and do not mess with Sue Lin. You will end up in a basket. And I really want to do a story where somebody ends up in a basket.
And the character description in the script, which Tonto nails, is Angela Merkel meets Don Corleone, meet your grandmother.
We had a conversation as to why she's always knitting, and it's like, because you can kill somebody with knitting needles if you need to. You know, you don't come at her.
My grandmother was a sewer. She beaded moccasins, and you know, a fight would break out between us. You know, between me and her daughter, my sister. She raised me, my grandmother, and she'd just keep on sewing away. And then if I was winning, she'd just take her needle and just give me a poke. Or if somebody was just getting too much ahead, she'd just add a little dash, you know, to change the story a little bit. And I just feel so honored to be a part of it because I know so many women of power and with force. We have had to survive genocide. And we have had to be creative. And that's one of the things that I so love about this show and about Dex's character. And I think Sue Lin has a great understanding of PTSD and the wars and how you can survive it without going to the doctor, without going to the cops. And you fix it with duct tape and snare wire. And that's the world that I came from. I was raised in a bush community. And you had to be tough. And you couldn't be crying around, and you just had to find a way of doing it. There wasn't the luxury of calling authorities and getting somebody to cover your back. What's going on? So I just love it, and each new story that comes, I'm just yeah. And you know, I mean, there's episodes that I'm not in, for gosh sakes. And it's really interesting. It's fun.
Question for Michael. Is this your first role on the sort of Law and Order side?
No.
I asked because you made that Dick Wolf joke downstairs.
Yeah.
I
I
felt
hope
like,
that.
no, I love it. You made that comment though, and it just made me think about how your portrayal of the character is just like really, you fit perfectly into any cop procedural show, and I didn't think that you had any background with roles of that type. So yeah, I was curious how you got into that mindset so smoothly.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's, you know, finding Hoffman, especially on that pilot episode that you saw, was kind of, it was interesting. I think Jason and I talked about a lot of things. Like every single scene, we talked about like how to make Hoffman a bit more unique. He's definitely a cop, but I feel like the graphic novel kind of is not it's more like a hyper reality, I guess. And so I feel like you, as an actor, you have to kind of bring some of that to the performance, so it's not so grounded in Law and Order, if you will. You know what I mean? And I hope I got that right.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Well, and I mean, you know, Hoffman in the graphic novel and Hoffman in the show
Yeah,
are
different.
You're not going to mistake the two of them. You know, yeah, a few. Michael's taller.
So the pilot pretty much covers the first volume. Is it fair to say that we can expect to see the rest of them, or does it go in its own direction from here, storyline-wise?
It goes in its own direction, but there's you know, as even in the pilot episode, which borrows, you know, from this great work that Greg had laid out, and that's what an adaptation is, and we can expect similar sort of things from some of the other stories that he laid out. We always have those up as things to be inspired by and you know, roads to go down.
One last question. Sure. For the cast, have you taken time as a cast? How big a deal is it that you have such a progressive and diverse cast and the characters on the show too? The kind of people you're playing on the show. It just seems like a pretty progressive group of characters for a network show. Have you talked about that amongst yourself?
Yeah, well, Michael said it best during the panel. You know, the goal is to get to the point where no one talks about
Sure.
diversity because it's just the new normal. As the Latino in the act, all I can tell you is, you know, I take this on with great responsibility. I know people are looking at me to represent our people well. But at the end of the day, my focus is the script, and I just try to make sure that my character is three-dimensional and human and funny, and I'm just going to bring it all to the table. And then people will draw their own conclusions. You know, Tookie runs a food truck, and he's going to be the best cook in the city. So bring it on.
I mean, I just want to say, I think at first glance, you go, oh, that would a diverse cast, and you think that because we're all kind of most of us are underrepresented,
Right.
you know, on television. So that is an amazing. I'm very proud to be. I'm underrepresented on television, so I consider myself diverse, and most of us are. But I think it only lasts in the picture, you know, in the photograph, and look how diverse they are. Because as soon as you get into the story, and as soon as you get into the relationships, we're just all, there's nothing diverse about that. We're just all humans, you know, trying to, and so it's, on the surface, that's what it feels like, but when we're in it, it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like people trying to make their way through life, and humans, you know, struggling with all the obstacles, and that's what's kind of wonderful, you know. But to Jason, ABC, everyone who's like, let's, you know, have the rainbow, we're all extremely thrilled about that.
And what's been cool about it, honestly, is that we've taken to each other. You know, we don't always work together. We don't always have our scenes together. I think you and I have most of our stuff together. But it's one of those things where whenever we see each other, it feels, what I was talking about in the panel, it feels normal. It feels normal, it feels healthy, it feels good, it feels like family. And I've been on shows, we've been on shows, and it's not always the case. I hate to say it, sometimes you can't stand your co-star.
And the only thing different than it feeling, I mean, the only thing different than it feeling like family is that we respect each other. And there is a lot of mad respect going on in our cast, which is really lovely, unlike my family, who I love dearly.
And on that note, we're done. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
The network would be more apt to send us up here to get some really great exterior shots and have us walking through the streets and on the bridges and stuff. So we're just hoping we have a great turnout when we start airing, so that we can come and really make Portland its own character. Right now, in theory, in our minds, it's its character, but we'd really love to show it as much as we can, and that just hopefully, because it opens to rave reviews and everybody loves it. But we love your town.
This was my, coming for this show was my third time coming to Portland, and my second time, I had a friend on Grimm. So I came to, everybody,
Yeah.
So I came to visit him, and we hung out, and we just walked around, and I was like, I felt like I was with, like Barry Bonds in San Francisco. Like, he was like royalty here. And I just saw a certain amount of, and it wasn't like idol worship. It wasn't that. It was like pride. I saw people that were proud that there was a show that was shot here, and the actors were here, and they were, you know what I mean? And so I felt people were very prideful of their city, of their town, of their turf. And I was just like, wow, it'd be nice to get that, because, you know, not every city will treat you like that. Not every city.
What, they would be liked or not? Well, it's funny because I honestly think the city suffers a little bit. Everybody in Portland kind of wants to be like, yeah, Portlandia, and we're all kind of like, fuck you, Portland. We're all a little pissed at the show.
Yes.
Because it's like, you didn't have the right to do that. Number one, you made fun of us. Number two, you don't even live here. So it's kind of like being able to go, no, we've got an actual real show now, and we're going to represent it properly, so that's where we get proud, because most Portland residents are proud of Portland.
Is
I
it
mean,
Portland? Is it Portland? Yeah.
We know our warts. We know where we suck, all right? And nobody gets is that gag about you don't get to criticize my family? I get to criticize my family, so.
One last question.
Sure. For the cast, have you taken time as a cast? How big a deal is it that you have such a progressive and diverse cast and the characters on the show too? The kind of people you're playing on the show. It just seems like a pretty progressive group of characters for a network show. Have you talked about that amongst yourselves?
Yeah, well, Michael said it best during the panel. The goal is to get to the point where no one talks about diversity because it's just the new normal. As the Latino in the act, all I can tell you is, I take this on with great responsibility. I know people are looking at me to represent our people well. But at the end of the day, my focus is the script, and I just try to make sure that my character is three-dimensional and human and funny, and I'm just going to bring it all to the table. And then people will draw their own conclusions. Tookie runs a food truck, and he's going to be the best cook in the city. So bring it on.
I just want to say, I think at first glance, you go, oh, what a diverse cast. And you think that because we're all kind of most of us are underrepresented,
right.
On television. So that is an amazing, I'm very proud to be, I'm underrepresented on television, so I consider myself diverse, and most of us are, but I think it only lasts in the picture, in the photograph, of look how diverse they are, because as soon as you get into the story, and as soon as you get into the relationships, we're just all, there's nothing diverse about that, we're just all humans, trying to, and so it's, on the surface, that's what it feels like, but when we're in it, it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like people trying to make their way through life and humans, struggling with all the obstacles, and that's what's kind of wonderful, but to Jason, ABC, everyone who's like, let's, have the rainbow, we're all extremely thrilled about that.
And what's been cool about it, honestly, is that we've taken to each other. We don't always work together. We don't always have our scenes together. I think you and I have most of our stuff together. But it's one of those things where whenever we see each other, it feels what I was talking about in the panel. It feels normal. It feels normal, it feels healthy, it feels good, it feels like family. And I've been on shows, we've been on shows, and it's not always the case. I hate to say it, sometimes you can't stand your co-star.
And the only thing different than it feeling, the only thing different than it feeling like family is that we respect each other. And there is a lot of mad respect going on in our cast, which is really lovely, unlike my family, who I love dearly.
And on that note, we're done. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.